You were mentioning your construct that you use when you're working with women to kind of form a, I don't want to say imaginary, but kind of an inner other masculine figure and a
Hmm.
father-like energy figure. What is the relationship or role of God
Mm.
in either your recommendations or perhaps your observations of the women that you're working with?
Yeah.
Because God, of course, inherently is kind of that masculine energy, overwatching and protective and guiding and
Sure.
teaching figure. Do you find women who have already a concept of God perhaps heal a little faster or easier in that way? Or do you find perhaps women getting closer with their construct of God when they are working with that inner masculine energy as well? What's kind of the role of God
Yeah.
in your
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic question. I'll answer it by going backwards a little bit. What often comes up in our coaching sessions and in the group coaching program that my wife leads with these women is that spiritual trauma will come forward. Their experience where God wasn't the masculine presence or presented as that. And so we spend quite a bit of time navigating that. Now, I have a background in spirituality. I went to seminary, I was a lay pastor. I know far too much or far too little about too much when it comes to spirituality. I can tell you what Passover is, I can tell you what Ramadan is, I can tell you what Buddhism is. I can tell you about all of the world religion, so to speak, and the spirituality and the woo and all of that. So I know enough to be dangerous to tap into that, and I have some vast experience specifically in Christian scripture, both Old Testament, New Testament. In fact, what most people don't understand or don't see necessarily is that so much of the foundation of our coaching practice is rooted in deep spirituality. Now, we don't forwardly or outwardly, I guess we are now, because here we are on a podcast, but we don't forwardly or outwardly say, yes, this is what we believe and this is what you should believe. We're actually the antithesis of that. So we want to be open and welcome. We want to be curious before critical. So that said, sometimes in our coaching practice, we began to go down a pathway in which to reestablish the masculine essence of what they truly want to be attached to, which is a godly figure. And so oftentimes folks and women will come to us with an adversarial attitude towards spirituality and God, which is completely understandable based on their trauma history. Now, all that said, we do have women who come to us and are incredibly spiritual, who are incredibly deep into their faith and look to God as the refuge. And so it is, to your point, can be an easier road to say you do have experience with healing masculine energy every Sunday when you go to church. And you are now. What's interesting about that is there can be a lot of misguidings and wounded narratives connected to someone's faith too. So just like someone would leverage marijuana use, alcohol use, busyness, spending too much time with your kids, that's right, there's that can happen. Any type of circumventing or bypassing strategy away from the pain that needs to be addressed, so can religion play that part. Where I spend 3 days at church, I'm always praying. I'm going to pray the pain away.
Yep.
This
Yep.
type of so church life can also be leveraged as a circumvention strategy around the pain that needs to be healed. But when folks come to us and they have an idea of something greater than themselves, which I say this to the men that I coach often, a man has to be tethered to something bigger than himself in order for him to truly heal. Now, whatever that is, whatever that choice is, there has to be something. It could be a philosophy, it could be God, it could be Allah, it could whatever. But something that they're putting their trust and faith in something bigger than themselves. Because if they're not, then they are, to quote some scripture from the Christian tradition, then they are building their house on sand and not on rock.
Yeah.
So it is a big deal. It's absolutely a big deal. And it can provide a more effective and efficient pathway to their healing.
Again, beautifully put. Well said. I think there's a lot of escapism in very religious communities and individuals, and I think it's an easy way out of actually doing work to just dive into external study,
Yep.
because ultimately the closer you get to God, the more you realize it is internal, and we have to heal our internal to actually be closer to God. Doesn't matter how much reading you do, doesn't matter how much time you spend in a
Right.
holy facility or reading
Yep.
a holy book. It's there is no escaping the hard work that it is to heal, and unfortunately I think that ends up giving all the religions a bad rap. When there's people that do that, they kind of use it as a crutch, as an escape avenue and pathway. And that's what kind of turns some people off from religion, not necessarily their own negative experiences, but observing, like, oh, you're this like devout, this, that, the other.
Yeah.
But you could clearly see that they got a whole bunch of stuff messed up in them, and they're just ignoring it because,
Yeah.
this psalm or this scripture, and it's,
Sure.
it's a disservice to the religions itself. If you enjoyed this clip, click the link in the description to watch my full conversation with David. He's a fantastic guy, and we have a great conversation about trauma, healing, masculinity, femininity, society at large, relationships, and how we can live a good, healthy, and fulfilled life as men or as women. It's a great conversation. You don't want to miss it. Click the link below.